Jacinta Price, thank you so much for joining me. Look, I don't doubt that some of the people who booed Adam Goodes were racist, but is racism really the explanation for that criticism that Goodes got at the end of his career?
Look, I haven't yet seen the documentary, so I can't comment on the documentary, but I don't think it was altogether entirely about racism. And I do believe when a lot of people say that, what they were booing about was not because of the colour of his skin, but because of the way in which he probably handled himself when dealing with a 13-year-old and some of his other antics. But to say it was entirely racism, I don't agree with that.
Turning to what I think is unmistakably racist are some of the attacks that you've been getting. We've talked about this before, Jacinta. I'm afraid that there's now another reason to talk to you about the same. Is the kind of stuff that you're getting and that which I've just shown viewers, is that real racism in your part? The calls of coconut and race traitor and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. It's absolutely ingrained racism. It sort of entrenches this view that Aboriginal women are not valuable, are not worthy, and, we can be treated however anyone would like to treat us, particularly those who simply have a difference of opinion to us. They feel as though they have every right to treat me as they do, with outright racism, because it's all directed at me based on the colour of my skin, based on my heritage. How dare I, step out of line and not speak how they think an Indigenous woman should speak or think?
Well, that itself is a racist presumption that there is one way of thinking that all Aborigines must, or people with Aboriginal heritage must, of course, subscribe to. Why do you think you have been copying so much of it? Like I say, I've reported on this for some time now.
Well, because I don't share, the same views. I don't see myself as a victim to, white people, this idea of colonisation. It's because I speak the truth when it comes to what we have to do for ourselves as Indigenous people to fix our problems, while a number of people out there would prefer to point the finger and blame elsewhere and not actually, lift a finger to solve any of these problems. I'm asking people to put up a mirror in front of who they are themselves, look at their own situations. I've probably touched on very sensitive subjects as well, and this leads to people wanting to attack me instead of having a look in that mirror. That's the only sort of explanation I can think of as to why people, it's like behaviour of, English villagers back in the 1700s and the 1600s, like grab your pitchforks and let's burn this witch at the stake.
Well, if it was only pitchforks, you might be a bit more reassured. But some of these threats, it's not just threats to throw eggs at you, to hit the back of your head with a brick. There's also a threat to shoot you in the head or try to get your vital organs. How seriously are you taking these threats on your lecture tour?
Look, I'm going to take them seriously. While I think a lot of these people are cowards and are not likely to attack me, there is always, you've got to take precautions. So in some places I will have security there. I shouldn't have to. This is Australia in 2019, and I should be able to, go to places and speak about my life experiences. These people don't even know what it is I'm talking about, but they are, in fact, confirmation of what it is I talk about, what we're up against as Indigenous people for speaking out against violence. They are those who condone violence, who obviously see it as appropriate, and they are the problem. They are who I am speaking about.
The last time I spoke to you about this, Jacinta, I named people who had been employed, say, by the Victorian government to do welcome to country ceremonies, or been employed by our ambassadors to do dancing and all that kind of stuff. They were then showering you with racist abuse, and as far as I could tell, they got no consequences for that. How much support have you had from the left, and particularly the media left, in dealing with the threats and racism that you're having to face?
The media left try to find ways of making me look like a hypocrite, making me look like I'm somebody who does those things. They don't stand up for me, which is, really disappointing, because there's this idea that we're supposed to stand up against violence. They don't support me in the way that they should support me in that regard. There are a handful of people that belong to the left, but not the sorts of numbers you'd see, like the sorts of numbers that are flowing in support of Adam Goodes. You don't sort of see those sorts of numbers in support of me for simply being able to stand up and have a difference of opinion without violent threats being made toward me, which is really concerning, given that Indigenous women are, of course, we know the statistics, we're far more likely to experience violence, and yet we're lacking in the area of need for support in that area. It's really quite alarming.
Well, explain that difference. We've got a media left that's obviously desperate to denounce racism, it claims. So it almost invents racists when it comes to Adam Goodes, but it ignores real racism aimed at you. Now, why would that be?
Because they've got a particular narrative that they want to, they've got to follow, they've got to maintain that narrative, and I don't help them maintain that narrative in that regard. I mean, during the election, I had the ABC attempt to, they were doxing me and attempting to, call me Islamophobic, and bring those who would be, Islamic radicals against me, because I shared a video back in 2014 of a woman who had left Islam and was talking about, her experiences as a woman who'd been oppressed, and this is what they attempt to do instead of supporting, what it is I'm trying to do in terms of I'm trying to support victims of violence. And in fact, it is those people that reach out to me on a very regular basis to say thank you and to keep doing what I'm doing. And that's why I continue to do what I do.
Jacinta Price, it's an honour to speak to you. I admire your courage. And if people want to catch up with one of your speeches on your national tour, True Arrow, and look up Jacinta Price, and it'll all be there in front of you. Thank you so much for your time, Jacinta.
Thank you, Andrew.
As I said, the True Arrow website will get you the details of Jacinta Price's tour.